What's up guys, in today's video I'm gonna mess around with my AEP. I am gonna try if I can make it shoot harder by installing a longer barrel. So I'm gonna install a barrel of this length and I will try, different BB weights, how it influences the joule, how it influences the FPS, and then once the barrel is installed into the gun, the really long one, I'm gonna cut it down a few centimeters, do the measurements again, cut it down, do all the measurements again. Then we're gonna find out what's the ideal barrel length for this tiny AEP gearbox. Okay, let's get started. The standard barrel that I have in there is usually this PDI 601 barrel. I already did the measurements with different BB weights, and as you can see with 0.25s I'm getting 0.55 joules. In the AEP is also a Eagle 6 spring, by the way. I think it's the strongest spring that you can get currently, unless you cut a VSO 10 spring. Then full cylinder by Syma, then the gears are also Syma because they're stronger than the Marui ones. And then I have the LiPo mod, but the LiPo mod doesn't do anything to the FPS, so what influences the FPS is mostly the PDI barrel, here the 601. I think this increases the FPS by about, I would say 20 FPS maybe. Then the full cylinder by Syma, of course, increases the FPS. For some reason Marui decided to put a cut cylinder, so decrease cylinder volume of the already very small cylinder volume, so I replaced this one. And yeah, the gears are by Syma, but again, this also doesn't influence FPS. Other than that, nothing is really changed. All of it is stock. And these are the results that I got from this setup. What's very interesting is that the joules actually drop with the usage of heavier BBs. I think that's due to the small cylinder volume. It's too small to support the barrel lengths with the heavy BBs. But yeah, I'm gonna do some more tests and then we're gonna find out if this theory is actually right. Here I have a SSG barrel, so also 601, same like the PDI one. But the cut is different. The SSG has the cut on the bottom right here, but for the AEP we need the cut to be on top. So what I did is I used the Dremel tool and I made a cut right here. Not super clean, not super perfect. It's nothing like the PDI one where it's milled, but I think it will be good enough to, to create a good enough seal that this test results will actually have, any meaning. What I don't like, however, is that I also have a cut on the bottom, which an AEP barrel doesn't have, so I am a little bit afraid that I will lose some of the air seal because of this cut. That's not necessary. But yeah, that's what I'm stuck with, so we're just gonna see how it goes. I am gonna apply some silicone lube right here, not on the contact surface to the BB, but on the contact surface from barrel to rubber. This way I ensure that there is, not a lot of leaking going on. It's just gonna make the air seal slightly better. Okay, we go. That's the one from my maintenance kit. That's very thick oil. You can see when I tilt it, it takes some time for it to adjust. So this means it's a thick oil. I'll just put it on here. Everywhere except into the hopper rubber window, because we don't want it on the contact patch, because this will influence FPS. If the BB can slip easier through, the pressure cannot build up, and it might increase, the FPS might decrease, but what we're trying here is to just see how barrel length affects the FPS and not, how much silicone oil I need on there to get the maximum FPS. Okay, we're just gonna keep the barrel at this length, which is 475 millimeters. Way too much, of course. But anyways, we're gonna see, where this gets us. Okay, now I have to check if... Okay, so we also have VSO 10 cuts here on the side. It's weird, it's like VSO 10 cut to some degree, but not completely, because the VSO 10 has the slot on the bottom. Here it has it on top. Here also we have the notches, that the barrel cannot turn. And I don't have this on the SSG barrel, so I still have to make those little nubs in order to make it fit into the barrel. So I'm gonna do this real quick, I'm gonna Dremel it, and I see you guys right after I did this. Again, this is all not perfect, but you know, we can now install it into the hop-up chamber and see how it affects the FPS. I'm also gonna wrap some Teflon tape around, just so the seal is as good as it can be. Oh, this is still full of oil, so I take some rubbing alcohol and remove all the oil on the outside. Okay, and now I apply the Teflon tape. Applying Teflon tape is an art. Don't just, you know, wrap it around like electrical tape. It should be applied under pressure, and once it overlaps, it usually doesn't come off anymore. The hop-up chamber was not designed to fit anything else than barrel and hop-up rubber, so if you make it too thick, it won't work anymore. Okay, then you have to make sure that everything is still aligned, which looks good. Okay, now it goes into the actual hop-up chamber. Now the barrel is installed the hop-up unit, and because I put oil onto the barrel, I'm afraid that it got into the barrel. Therefore I'm gonna clean it real quick with this cellulose fabric and some rubbing alcohol. That should do the trick. So make sure first, of course, that the hop-up is not on maximum but on minimum, and then I just go down the barrel. And back. Make sure that everything is nice and dry. And now we can install it back into the AEP. That looks pretty sweet. Hop-up is adjusted to maximum. Let's see if this still fits here. I could actually play like this with a long suppressor, and there's the slide kit where you have a rail and a suppressor. I think it's one is made by Marui, and Zoom also makes one. Yeah, but for the test we actually don't need it. Okay, we start with 0.25 gram BBs here from GG. Let's see. I always shoot 5 BBs, and then the test result that's kind of like in the middle of all the values. So I'm testing it with this chronograph that I'm lying around, and here we go. SG24 barrel in an AEP with 0.25 gram BBs. Interesting. 78 FPS. That's not a lot. We write that down anyways. This might be because it's leaking and the setup that I built is not very airtight. Could be. Of course, the milled barrel will be tighter when it comes to the air tightness. But it could also be, the cylinder just really pushes the BB until here, all the air. And then it's more like a negative pressure, which just really stops the speed of the BB. Okay, anyways, we document it real quick. So we have SSG24. Okay, now we try the same with 0.46 gram BBs, just to see how it reacts with heavy BBs. It should probably be even worse. It can't shoot them. Okay, let's try again. I don't know what's going on. It should come out of the barrel actually, but for some reason they don't. Maybe it's just too heavy, but they should come out of the barrel actually. Yeah, it can't. It barely flies out of the barrel. Like, let's try 0.36s and see what happens. So I actually can't measure the 0.46. Apparently they are too slow. Let's see what happens with those. 0.36. Seems like the AEP doesn't like heavy BBs. The magazine is broken. Let's get a new one. Okay, new magazine. Let's see how this one does. Just 0.36 gram BBs. This is a Sumo magazine. Maybe it feeds better than the Marui one. So apparently the barrel is way too long. As you can see, the FPS decreased from 218 to 78. So yeah, way too long. Let's try like a realistic length where you can still, run a suppressor on the AEP, and I could actually, hide the barrel in there, because you can't play it like this. You're gonna break the inner barrel, and a suppressor. You don't want to run a suppressor like this on a pistol. So let's just keep it realistic. Okay, first the rough cut with the angle grinder, and now we make the pretty cut with the Dremel. Now the reason why I'm not taking out the barrel to cut it is because every time I disassemble it and I put it together, this just leaves space for errors, and then the results will be less accurate. So I always know it's the exact same setup, but the barrel length is different. Now we have to make a small chamfer here without trying to burn my hand and without trying to sketch the surface of the inner barrel. So I'm just touching the corner and the edge, but I'm not touching the inside of the barrel, because this would again influence the FPS and we don't want that. Okay, now we blow out the residues from the cutting. Okay, so far so good. Now let's see what this one brings in terms of FPS. We use again 0.25 gram BBs, because that's what people usually use in AEPs. Let's see. Actually, I think the switch unit just kind of burned out, so I have to do it with a screwdriver. (209 FPS, which is still slightly below the measurement that I did with the 6-in-1 PDI barrel, the shorter one. But let's get a few more results to confirm that FPS. 204. And again 209. So it's around, between 200 and 210. This tells us again, this barrel is still too long. It decreases the FPS of this gun. I'm gonna cut it one more time right here. Right here in the middle, between the muzzle end and the barrel length right now. And if this also doesn't increase the FPS, it just means that probably a shorter barrel is even better than a longer barrel. In the end, I'm also gonna try, to cut it to the exact length, so that we see if it's maybe, not just caused by the way I connected the hop up to the barrel. Maybe the The cutting that I did just made it leaking way more, and that's why the results are so bad. Yeah, let's see what happens. There we go. Again, I have to get rid of, you know, the residues from cutting, and I burnt my hand again. Just making sure that the BB can leave the barrel without touching any of the, you know, metal from cutting. Of course not perfectly beautiful, but pretty enough for this test. Okay. Now again, 0.25 gram BBs. Let's see. Okay, 217 FPS with 0.25s. That's about the same as I had in the very beginning with the PDI barrel. So let's confirm this with a second shot. $218 again. $211. So yeah, it definitely doesn't increase the FPS. Now what I'm gonna do next is cut the barrel right here, you know, where it originally ends. And if we then get back to the results that we had before, then it means that barrel length doesn't make any difference on AEPs because the cylinder volume is just way too small. Once again, 0.25 gram BBs. Let's put a few more. $207.9 FPS, so that's about 208 FPS. Okay, here, quick summary of the results. With the PDI 601 barrel in the normal lengths, I had 0.55 joules with maximum hop-up setting, so that's 218 FPS with 0.25s. And the heavier I went with the BBs, the less FPS, not the less FPS, yeah, of course the less FPS, but also the less joules I got. So using heavy BBs in such a low-powered gun is probably not a good idea because, you know, you only have so much FPS. Why not, you know, get the most joules out of it and probably even the most range because the velocity is just really low. Okay, then with the longest barrel, so the SSG 24 barrel, again modified by myself, so it probably doesn't seal as perfect. Here we have 7.8 FPS. I didn't even calculate the joules, but that's probably, I don't even know, 0.2, 0.1 joules, very low. So not usable at all. Then with a 200mm long inner barrel, we had 205 FPS, so also no increase to the normal lengths. And then with 140, which is, you know, so much about 2 centimeters longer than the normal barrel, it's 211 FPS. And the last experiment that I did was cutting it to the same lengths. I didn't write it down here, but I had around 209 FPS. So also here lower than with the PDI barrel. What I'm wondering now is what actually happens if we make the barrel shorter than the stock barrel. Let's find out. Okay, there we go. Now I hope that if I shoot this thing that it actually finds all the way through this hole right here. Yeah, let's hope for the best. Let's hope that I don't shoot off this piece right here. Okay, let's stabilize the barrel. Okay, barrel is stabilized. Let's see what happens. $137, so that's actually lower. Let's try one more time. 192. Oh, it's getting there. 195. 198. Okay, there we go. 198. So we could actually make that barrel slightly shorter without losing too many FPS, but why would we really do that? Okay, so what do we learn from this? It doesn't make sense to make a longer barrel, the FPS get lower. It also doesn't make sense to make it shorter because also the FPS become lower. I think what Marui really did here is, you know, trying to get the best muzzle energy possible, the highest muzzle energy possible out of this small package. So the cylinder is already matched to the barrel, therefore it doesn't make any sense to, you know, add a centimeter or decrease a centimeter. Also using heavier BBs makes sense in pretty much every airsoft gun I used so far. Not in this one. It decreases muzzle energy. And, you know, I could compromise from 3 joule to like 2.8 joules if I can use heavier BBs and, you know, to just carry the energy a little bit further. But for this little energy, I want to get the most out of it. And I don't have 0.2 gram BBs right here, right now, but probably 0.2 gram BBs are the best BBs for the AEP. 0.25 are better than 0.3s, so yeah, who knows where's the sweet spot. Okay, hope you guys learned something from this, hope you enjoyed. Again, this is not meant to be an entertaining channel, nothing here was prepared, I just, you know, messed around and that's what came out. Hope you guys enjoyed, subscribe if you want to see more tech videos like this, and I see you on the next one.